Knowing how to choose lumber can make or break your project. I'll give you a quick primer coming right up.
Knock, knock. Who's there? ToolGirl.
When you need to choose lumber for a job, maybe a little bit of a deck or some shelves, you've really got to go and sort through the lumber yourself because there's a lot of it that's cut and twisted and bowed. And I'm going to show you the secret for getting the best lumber. Sometimes if you really need a lot of it, it's better to go to the store, pick all your lumber, then tell them to put this batch on the truck so you're not just taking whatever they happen to throw onto the truck. Okay, so here's the trick. First of all, like this is a really bad board that it's going to be firewood because if you sight down it, and this is the trick that you'll want to do in the store, you pick the board up and you sight down it and you can see the bowing in it. So you go 1, 2, all 4 sides, 3, it's a joke, and 4. And you'll know because now you've moved through all the dimensions of the wood and you can see. So that's the big trick, but there's a few other things to look for as well. If there are a lot of knots in the board, like big open knots, you want to avoid those because then they develop cracks that eventually split into the side of the board and weaken the whole board. And you also want to look out for hairline cracks that start out as just a little tiny split at the end, but then they travel all the way into the board. You'll end up having to cut the board a lot shorter to use it because this is not stable. You can see it really moves around. So that's something to look out for. Most of the softwood that you can buy, it's a bit ratty. Look for a little sign that says KD, that means it's kiln dry. It means that it only has about 8% moisture as opposed to 10 to 25% moisture content for air-dried lumber, or as I like to call it, pond-dried, because it's really wet and heavy. So you'll want to make sure that you can see that little sign. You want to find nice, tight, closed knots rather than big open ones because eventually the knot will fall out, leaving a big hole in the board. You know, if you've just made something nice, is kind of an eyesore. And it's also important to watch out for cosmetic problems like this, where there's been some bug damage to this cedar. And you also want to watch out for a lot of crummy looking boards that just came from the mill looking like this. When they cut the lumber at the mill, they cut it to 2 inches by 4 inches for a 2x4. But guess what? Then they plane it to make it smooth. So now it's really 1.5 by 3.5 inches. So if you really want a hot dog at the home center, go in and say, yeah, I'm looking for some 1.5 by 3.5. Yeah, and make sure you make that little sound too because it shows that you're confident and knowledgeable.
ToolGirl.